bring up. I think like at a higher level, one of the most compelling ideas around AI being integrated into the world that I've been thinking about the past few years is this idea that a lot of the value should come from not a manual human interaction of you tell an AI to do something, but rather it knows truly what the best thing to do is without you having to do anything. So, like taking in passive data, in this case, taking in passive audio. I think there's a lot of exciting work to be done there. And that's like a good example you just brought up of like if there's something clearly going on environmentally that's not a human asking for something with their voice, but like audio indicates something that has like an obvious consequence. Maybe there needs to be like an emergency, some sort of emergency service is called, or just something needs to be done. Um, that's something that we just can't really get right now. And like at a second point here, this whole process of going from audio to text and back into like the reasoning brain of an LLM just really doesn't make sense. Even just for text, it loses so much context, and there's an error rate. But if you're going beyond text at all, it's a total mess. And there's a question of like how much text could you even pull out of an audio clip, right? Like there might be some stuff going on in the background. Do you want to decode it all out, or do you only want to decode the audio? When you go directly from audio into the like bigger model, there's no need to make that trade-off because the model receives everything.
So I had a quick question. Of course, I've been reading about AlphaFold 3, and I was very surprised by their diffusion based model. But one of the things that I was reading, and again, I'm not at all an expert in diffusion based models, but essentially, the biologists have written about how with diffusion based models, you can integrate multimodalities, at least for this kind of data, a little bit better. And although there's a risk of hallucinating, you're basically able to kind of like do more because you're starting with a certain offset, or you're basically trying to converge to something very physically, right? Right, in the case of AlphaFold. I'm just wondering if that kind of a model would be more appropriate for like a more generalized purpose. And keep in mind that I don't understand the math of diffusion that well.
Mm.
Or are you asking like compared to a transformer or something?
Yeah, like because I mean I don't entirely understand why diffusion was used for AlphaFold 3, but from in the paper they were mentioning this like multimodality and its ability to handle multimodality better. So yeah, like I was just wondering about that.
I don't know. I haven't read about AlphaFold to be honest.
Okay, I was saying like more just generally because they didn't use a very specific, like they used a pretty general diffusion model. So I was just like generally asking if like um moving from transformers to diffusion based models for what you were talking about is like helpful.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think transformers and diffusion models they both solve for different things. It's very difficult to like if you look at like a diffusion model for generating images or a transformer for generating like next token prediction, it's very difficult to even consider swapping that around, right? Like it doesn't really make that much sense to do like a diffusion text model or a transformer for generating an image. And that's partly because of how the resolution and stability of the output data is. Like with an image, it makes sense that you would diffuse from like a lower resolution to a higher resolution thing and kind of make it more exact and specific over time. With next token prediction, that's not the case. You just want to pick the next token. Um, it just doesn't make that much sense to me. So I don't know, but if you look at like Sora, for instance, they combine the two in a way that I think makes a lot of sense. Maybe LBJ, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but with Sora, they're using diffusion in a traditional way to handle like, let's say, like the image output and then the transformation of the video over time, which encodes kind of the logic of what's going on physically, is done also with transformer layers, right?
Yeah, I forgot exactly what components of the Sora architecture are doing what, but I do know it's a diffusion transformer hybrid architecture, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I certainly don't think it would be fair to say that diffusion models are like better suited to do like text transformation or anything like that. And I don't really know in what sense they like handle multimodality better. And I'm assuming in terms of AlphaFold, that's talking about like different types of biological structures because I did hear that they're kind of going beyond just proteins now.
Yeah, they're going nucleic acids and ions, like, and all kinds of like sort of smaller molecules.
But to be clear, this is like very different from the type of modalities that people work with in language models and audio
Yeah,
and models.
yeah, I understood that. I guess like that's what I was trying to ask because it felt like it's not just that they used the diffusion model. It's like they completely pivoted from, a transformer model to diffusion model for answering still like a similar uh, kind of question. So yeah, I was just like wondering if that's a general trend that we're gonna see.
I don't think so. I think if you look at like the problem space of what AlphaFold is doing, it makes sense that a diffusion model could work there. Because again, it's like if you're going from AlphaFold takes like a certain encoding for a protein and creates a 3D representation of how it would actually behave, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
makes sense
exactly.
that like you could use a diffusion model there because you can have something which kind of corrects itself more and more over time. But this is not really what's happening in transformers. Um, transformers is very different the way that they work in terms of sampling, in terms of like the entire process of what's happening. And on some level, like you could say it's a little bit similar, where if you look at the way that the embedding is transformed from layer to layer in a transformer, but that doesn't really capture on the outside the overall process of generating a completion of the transformer where you're picking a token each time, and that really doesn't suit itself well to diffusion.
I see. That makes sense. Yeah. Thank you so much for that thorough answer. That was super helpful.
Sure.
Hey, one thing that I thought was I think is really interesting. I tried out the Google Gemini 1.5. I put in an entire Twitter space, like a multi-hour Twitter space, passed it into it, and it did like kind of process the transcript seemingly and give like some information about it. But it's really unclear whether or not it took in the audio or if it took the audio, transcribed it, and outputted something based off of
It's
that.
it's almost certainly the latter. Like when I experimented with it, I said the same sentence 3 times with a very tone of voice each time, like sad, happy, angry. And when I like it just did not pick up on it at all. And even when I explicitly prompted it to tell me
My
what the differences were, it just
Sure,
hallucinated
sure,
something.
but my guess, perhaps, but my guess is, or I think it's also likely or possible that it's actually a data set problem. And I think this is just like a really interesting problem where even if you have a bunch of like if you have a model that can take in audio but it only outputs text, how do you prepare a data set so that it can actually understand like the different emotional like aspects of the text? And I think that might be what's happening with this Gemini model is that it is taking in audio, but it doesn't have the data set to really understand how to process that and output text based off of it. But yeah, I did experiment with it a bit, and I would lean towards it is a transcript. But then again, I passed in some music and some other things. It almost seemed like maybe it had some awareness, but it's very unclear. But even still, I think this like data set question, like how do you prepare a data set for a model that can take in audio but only output text?
The way you would prepare a data set for that is just similar to how you prepare text data sets for pre-training. Like you just have like, or I'm not sure exactly how they do it, but ideally the way you would want to do it is doing next sequence prediction on the audio in just the same way you would do for text pre-training. And so you have a segment of audio and needs to predict, hey, what's going to happen in like this next second or whatever, and it's just like the loss value is judged based on how accurate it is to that prediction. And then you have that for like huge corpuses of audio, and you take in an input, needs to predict what happens next in the audio, and from that it just generates like that world model of just understanding audio without any emotional labels actually needing to be applied anywhere. It's just like how you can tell ChatGPT to generate happy text, even though OpenAI didn't have to label a bunch of things as, oh, this is happy, this is not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's just I would say that's probably there's no you'd have to craft that data set. I'm not sure if there's a way to kind of derive it from anything. Yeah.
I think it would be like the reason why Google might not be like ideally as good as it could be with their audio understanding is maybe because they're only doing something like input. Because for what I'm talking about, you would need to do it fully end to end with audio input and audio output capability in the model. And so it might just be like an input only thing. So it's much more limited and like not much training there.
By the way, um, I mean, I'm assuming that Google is going to release 1.5 Ultra on Tuesday, right? So, based on just like how things have been, that should be better than GPT-4 and Opus, like by a clear margin. Like it should be definitively better, right?
Um, maybe, yeah. I think it could, but then at the same time, OpenAI, we've seen GPT-2 chatbot. I feel like a lot of people forgot about that suddenly, like really quickly. But the GPT-2 chatbot model, people already noticed that had like, better reasoning in a lot of ways, more natural. And I tested it
But it was
myself on a
not. It
lot of
was not definitive. GPT-2 chatbot was not definitively smarter than GPT-4. It was like
What do you
some
think
people were like,
about
yeah, it sort of seems like, and then other people were saying no. Like if we get like an actual step up, there should be no debate. It should be obvious to everyone.
Yep.
I think.
Wasn't
Huh.
there? Hold
Yeah,
on. Wasn't there like a math challenge that only like the top 8 or so like math Olympians get to even attempt, and it like got it one shot first try? Or
That may have
Yep,
been
I think
bullshit. I'm not
Yeah, I
sure.
feel like that sort of
somebody
thing
tried
is like you read that online. It's not like it's necessarily doing its own reasoning.
Somebody tried it with GPT-4, and I remember like it gave a similar answer. I think it might have just been like one of the easier Olympiad questions or something that like the
And remember
model
too,
had been on the internet for a while.
The
remember that for a lot of these comparisons, or for all of these comparisons, like you need to run the model like multiple times. You know, like there's so many
Yeah,
instances
that's
where
yeah.
you run GPT-4 once, and then you do GPT-2 chatbot once, and then the latter's answer is better. And you're like, oh, it's smarter, but like that's just not. You need to like that's not a big enough sample size. Like even for the
Yeah,
same exact question, you need to run it multiple times.
so
yeah. For me, yeah. You go.
didn't somebody
That.
like evaluate it numerically. I know it wasn't like on the LMSys leaderboard or anything, but I think somebody did evaluate it. If I recall correctly, it was like marginally better than GPT-4 Turbo. And I feel like to Spencer's point, if you compare any sort of like generation or size jump, like go from like Llama 3 8B to Llama 3 70B, or go from GPT 3.5 to GPT-4, the difference is like so significant. You just can't, there's no question about it. It's a massive, massive difference. For GPT-2 chatbot, it seemed like it's not even certain if it is smarter.
Now,
Yeah,
what
I
would
never.
make sense to me is if is sorry if I keep interrupting, by the way.
No,
What would
go
make
on.
sense to me is if GPT-2 chatbot was the light version of their new model.
That's what I think is the case. I think GPT-2 chatbot is most likely something like it was confirmed in the code. There is a reference to GPT-4 Lite. And that seems like most likely what it might be. And it might be like this new type of much more efficient architecture that's like a little bit better than at reasoning than GPT-4, but like maybe significantly cheaper and could be maybe served much more fast. on the
and
API.
fast enough to use effectively for the end-to-end voice.
Exactly, yeah. And maybe even like integrated with like whatever architecture is there, maybe like some end-to-end actual audio understanding into the model, so you have like this lower latency conversational system too.
And then maybe you can have the smarter model just for, because you don't need the audio. Like, so for the smarter model, the light model can just say, okay, let me think for a second, and then like route the prompt to the text-based smart model, and then just circle back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but yeah, I think for now it's like GPT-4. I know it's kind of like a weird naming scheme. I feel like they're probably gonna work on that, but I think GPT-4 Lite would maybe be like their new flagship that it's like pretty much better, at least slightly, than regular GPT-4 in every way, while also being like cheaper and faster.
You know what I
No.
just realized too? Do you remember
Mhm.
back in November during the coup when OpenAI rolled out the voice mode to free users?
Yeah.
So basically, like, it's clear now that the reason they did that is just that was just part of iterative deployment. Like, they wanted as many people as possible to just like get accustomed to it, like gradually.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for that same reason, I mean, people are speculating that GPT-4 Lite type model might be available to free users. But then if that's the case, then the question is then like what is the point of paying $20 a month? And maybe they'll just have like, I don't know, like way higher rate limits for pro users and maybe like some extra features and some like file browsing integration and like just a better, faster processing like that if you pay for the pro.
It's honestly so embarrassing and like pathetic that GPT 3.5 is still like the face of ChatGPT.
True. Like people sometimes try it and then they like spend 5 minutes on ChatGPT, they leave and they're like, I don't know what everybody's so impressed about. This is so bad. And they don't even know about GPT-4 or like any other model.
No, but like it's seriously, it is so bad. I had so many conversations like the past couple semesters in college. Even if they're aware of GPT-4, they don't understand that it's more intelligent. Like I don't think it occurs to most people that the models are getting more intelligent with each generation. Like they call it Chat GPT-4 as opposed to GPT-4, and I think that that's not just like a superficial thing. I think that like reflects how people think that like the main difference is like a UI change or something like that. I don't think people actually understand that like the scaling laws exist.
Yeah, I think actually I have a question for you, Spencer. Earlier when you're talking about like things that are definitively better, would you consider Cloud 3 Opus to be definitively better than GPT-4?
I haven't really used it that much.
Okay. Well, I guess like since there is some like mild debate still of whether or not it's better than GPT-4, then I guess it wouldn't be definitive since it's not like a unanimous agreement that it's better, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so like by that term of definitive, I do not think Gemini 1.5 Ultra would be definitively better than GPT-4.
Oh, but
Um,
okay, no, I don't think that's correct because Gemini 1.5 Pro is basically GPT-4 level.
Yeah, did we surpass
yeah,
it the
but
other
like,
day in the leaderboard?
but we could also say that a lot of people would say Claude 3 Sonnet is also basically GPT-4 level, and but like so like kind of using the same logic, Cloud 3 Opus would have to be definitively better, but it's like not really.
So if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure 1.5 Pro on Alemsys is at like 1253 or 1251 in terms of ELO, which is much higher than Opus. I think Opus is down to like, I mean, it's like 12 something, but like GPT-4, 0409, and 1.5 Pro are like very, very close on the leaderboard.
Yeah, I think I'm hoping they have some type of like for OpenAI like a 4.5 or something. I mean, I feel pretty like somewhat confident that they would release a 4.5 before they release the full 5 just because, they're all about iterative deployment and everything. But if their next model is GPT-4 Lite, then yeah, I feel like within the next ideally it would be on Monday, but I think within the next few months though, they'd probably have like a 4.5 release that's like definitively better than this GPT-4 Lite model, which is already a little bit better at reasoning than GPT-4.
By the way, Did you see that Joe Biden went to San Francisco a couple days ago for he like met up with Vinod?
Vinod
Oh, I hate
Khosla.
that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I think.
regardless, I'd be very curious to know what they talked about.
Yeah, did you see the picture of Joe Biden? He was going to Vinod's house with a blue backpack. No, I'm kidding.
Wait, what? Okay, okay.
Imagine he's wearing Sam Altman's backpack.
Did you see the video where Vinod is like, "Oh, China is like benefiting from open source. We can't allow that."
I did not see
That's
that. No, I haven't been keeping up with
that's
his lore.
crazy. Not
I
I
did
saw
see
it earlier
that.
today, and it was
Yeah.
framed as like, "Oh, national security," but like he didn't say it that way. The subtone was more like, "I don't want Chinese people to be well off." That's what I got from it, at least. It's like, "Oh, China's benefiting from open source. Somebody outside of America
Okay,
is benefiting. We can't have that."
wait. I think he's against the CCP, not like the average Chinese citizen.
Yeah, so but who's benefiting from open source, the CCP or the average Chinese citizen?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Both.
I mean, it does seem like the national security interest does, extend to economic interests, and the idea that, I think the 70 billion is questionable, but like if this 400 billion really could drive like a massive amount of economic gain, and we just hand it to China, it might, make them more effective at competing economically with the U.S. And I do think a lot of people would view that as a bad outcome.
Okay,
And
no.
I do think, yeah,
Why would you do that as a bad
I
outcome?
think that's very bad economic reasoning. Like that's like zero sum thinking, and I think that's like really bad. I think that like we should want China to do well, like economically, but we should also be scared of the CCP.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, first of all,
Yeah.
China is like a quarter of the world's population, and a large part of the entire global economic story for the last like 50 years has been the United States improving its own economy while also uplifting China by manufacturing there and creating a big East Asian economic supply chain. It's not as though like the United States and like American people are constantly opposed to the betterment of China, but that's just the subtone that I got from his video.
yeah. I personally wouldn't definitively claim that we shouldn't like, or that we should try and impede China's economic rise, but I do think it's there are, I'd have a hard time kind of still manning the side where you do want to prevent that, but I mean, there is like the reality that if China is slower in its economic gain, then they're going to have less like economic pressure to the rest of the world, and the U.S. would have more, and it would allow us to, be able to,
Oh, I wonder
better
where I
achieve
am.
our
Oh, I'm not
interests.
even
Like,
streaming. Oh,
it,
well. I guess
I
I'll
mean,
just show what I'm
it's
doing
pretty
here.
much undeniable that if a country is economically successful, they're going to be more effective at pushing their interests internationally, and so them being economically successful may be of concern if we care about our interests, including our economic interests. Yeah.
Yeah, I think overall global economic acceleration is. I think most of us just agree with that general premise.
Yeah, and like I don't.
You know,
Go ahead, Spencer.
no, sorry, I really feel bad about like interrupting. Please go.
I don't agree with like I don't disagree with the general principle that like look, as a country on some things that's like against U.S. interests, sure, but when we're talking about like open sourcing LLMs to the whole,
To the whole?
talking about giving them the same level of democratized intelligence as we're giving to every government and individual person in the West, in Europe, in like countries that aren't opposed to the US or allied with it. It's the whole world. And it seems like really freaky to make like the suggestion that independent US citizens who have their own interests, their own like intellectual pursuits and money are not allowed to publish helpful tools to the rest of the world, and that instead we should like lock it down like dictator style. That's just crazy to me.
Jan also recently tweeted today that one of the things that these language models do is like if you can download a 20 gig file and completely blow past the Chinese firewall, it's like it's going to be a very big concern of China's that these technologies don't propagate perhaps to all of their citizens, and it's maybe a good thing for like democratic interests that these do propagate.
Yeah.
So there's
The
that
other
side.
thing I want to say is like in Kosla's video, he talked about like, oh, the Mistral team like cloned the Llama 3 architecture and China is definitely cloning it, and he kind of like made some conspiracy style remarks about deep tech in a similar regard. But I just want to say, like, if you know Llama 3 architecture, first of all, it's the same as Llama 2. It's basically the same as the original Transformer
Like
from
GPT
years
two,
ago.
right?
There's no like I don't know how to say this without sounding rude, but like the actual architecture behind LLMs, even OpenAI's LLMs and Anthropic's and Google's, it is not complicated. That is not where the value is whatsoever. Like these are not some difficult, like crazy technology that's like kept behind closed doors. It's the training and the data sets and the infrastructure to deploy them efficiently that's
Yeah.
difficult, especially the data. But like Llama 3 does not have a complicated architecture, and as far as we can tell, neither do any of the closed source models.
Ruin has come
Yeah,
to
like
our
what
family.
makes Llama special and what makes like Mistral special is not like this architecture decision because it's a multi-year-old architecture, like you're saying, pretty much. Like, yeah, but I don't know it like it is what it is, yeah. But training techniques and data and all that, that's what mainly separates them. But of course,
We'll let
like
a
when an
sneak peek
architectural
of the
breakthrough
second
happens or
monitor, I
whatever,
guess.
then it's they're going to be different.
I
Yeah.
guess I wanted to add that that like kind of makes sense to me, given that the actual architecture, um, at least at a high level, is always released, right? Even when like, or as in not always released, but it's released many times when the rest of the model is not released.
Demo
So I guess like
paper.
just like again, it kind of makes sense that the architecture is roughly similar. I mean, even within the models in my industry or whatever in biotech, um, it's just mostly been like small changes
Oh,
for
interesting.
a lot of larger models, even LLMs, over time. Um, and yeah, like the results are so dramatically different.
I will say that Zuck did say that the 400 billion is going to have a different underlying or enhancements to the algorithm in the Dwarkesh podcast. And I think in these next generations of models, we should expect some amount of architectural improvement, whether they're so
Some amount,
novel
though.
that China's not going to be able to discover them. Like, again, another thing Jan said in the same post that I mentioned earlier is he said that China does have a lot of really great AI scientists that can, quote, fast follow the U.S. And so I do think it's maybe arrogant to even assume that we're so intellectually capable that we're going to discover some novel insights that China cannot get themselves. When all of the technology up to this point is really all available. So yeah.
Yeah, Chinese research is actually kind of cracked. Like Tsinghua University, like that's pretty much like the Harvard of China. Like I
Agree.
would say the amount of significant papers in AI that I've actually seen come out of there are maybe even more than like I've seen come out of like Harvard and Stanford combined in like the past couple years. And maybe
True,
not
dude.
necessarily like
True.
the exact same quality as coming out of Stanford or whatever, but I mean a lot of significant work is coming out of China. And what you said about Mark Zuckerberg talking about like agents and new features and architectures, he actually mentioned on I think it was like the Q4 earnings call of Meta. He said that for Llama 3, and this is a few months before Llama 3 was even announced, he said Llama 3 would pretty much be scaling up data and compute of like the current architectures and work. But after that, as in Llama 4 and beyond, is when they're going to start working on like the more different directions and I guess actually taking bigger leaps of, more risky types of architectures and things like that, which is probably going to get interesting. So I do think like maybe towards the end of 2024 and definitely 2025, we'll start seeing like these more exotic ideas start to sprout and actually be implemented on large scales.
Did they tell you when? Did they tell when the next JEPA base models are coming out? Like I know VJEPA came out like as a paper, but I don't know if there's any like timelines to that.
Yeah, so there's the Dino models, like Dino V2. I know that used some inspiration from JEPA, and that's kind of like a state-of-the-art image understanding model. Uh, and it's not like a general model, just like for image understanding and things like that. But apparently they're working, I've been hearing some things that they're working probably on Dino V3 and maybe having that research integrated into like Llama 4 or something in some way. And Dino V3, I guess that would maybe be using their latest JEPA research. And there's actually a paper that came out in March of this year called IWMs, I want to say, like JEPA IWMs, Image World Models. And it's some interesting new progressions that the JEPA research is taking. Here, I'll link that in the space if anybody's interested.
I think that's the one that you brought up in a space, right? Like when it came out, I think you were in a space. So yeah, I think I remember reading that paper just roughly.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think clearly architectural improvements are important, and like architecture can be very complicated for good reason. But my point was just, it's not like the Llama 3 architecture is like a national security secret worth protecting or something. It's very simple. It's a couple hundred lines of PyTorch. I mean,
Yeah, and like the current architectures are like over 2, 3 years old at this point.
yeah.
Sorry, so when it comes to
It's
like
kind of like
picking, sorry,
yeah, go
when it
for it.
comes to picking like a sort of a specific change to an architecture, I was just wondering at a high level, does that like for the team that's building the model, is that about like sort of computational experiments? Like what are the considerations that go into something like that? Because it feels like there could be a lot of right answers, at least.
Yeah, I mean, there's hundreds of different architectures you could build, and within each of those, there's like an infinitely large configuration space with how you want to like change things up. Like at a very simple level, if you look at like say a 10 billion parameter LLM, that could be a very different model depending on how many transformer layers are there versus how wide are they, like how big are the embeddings. There's a lot of different parameters, and then just beyond parameters there's countless architectures you could build. It turns out that some simple architectures are pretty good right now, and the data and compute is just more important currently. But like, I'm not trying to make a general point here about simple architectures or anything. I think they will become complicated. But this like notion that the Llama 3 architecture was like some sort of crazy advancement, that's just not true. That was my only point. It's not an architecture advancement, it's just a data advancement. And if there's any sort of like algorithmic improvement, like we know for a fact because we see the front end of it, the PyTorch code, there was no change there. It was the same as Llama 2, other than the vocab size, and they put GQA on the small model. The algorithmic improvements they would have made internally are like how they do their training.
Yeah.
Here's an architecture for you, John. Would you marry an AI girlfriend with an artificial womb?
No, I don't think so. I like humans.
That's haram. That's got to be
Yeah.
haram.
In a heartbeat, baby.
Agree.
I went to a farmer's market today, solving the fertility crisis.
Oh my God.
Actually, if we rewind a little bit to when we were talking about her and things like that, I feel like a lot of people forgot. Remember when all those kind of like that list of subdomains was like shown and I guess like posted and things like that. There was a subdomain that OpenAI registered called Agent Chat. And I think like maybe we'll see kind of the debut of that type of thing. And that would effectively be like, maybe a GPT-4 Lite model is able to have like these really natural low latency vocal conversations with you, but simultaneously is able to do these complex kind of agent interactions with this custom like agent chat interface or framework or something that it's able to do things like interact with all your Google Drive files and integrations, able to very quickly search the web way better and faster than current GPT-4, like maybe something like that. Also, apparently, it could make phone calls. In the code, they have like
Confusing why this.
lines referencing like answer call, decline call, and things like that. So maybe it could actually call you when it needs something, or when it needs a clarifying question, or call other organizations for you.
Can I say something that I think is like super underappreciated right now?
Sure.
So I think that like everyone is underestimating how big of a deal AI therapy is going to be and how much of a positive impact it will have on society. Like
Hard
I have not
agree.
seen anyone actually
Not
fully
therapy,
like
but peer
express how big
support.
of a deal this will actually be.
Except for Levels.io. Have you seen his product? He's already doing it.
But whatever it is, it's not what I'm imagining because you need to have what OpenAI is announcing tomorrow. You need to have that for it to
Yeah,
for it to
like
really be good, and then you need to have a better context window, and all that is being fixed. But when we do get like AI therapy that is on par with high quality therapy that costs hundreds of dollars a session today, that is available 24/7 and is like infinitely patient, I think that like people overall are going to be so much happier. And even if AI somehow didn't change anything else
Shit.
except that, even if that is like the only impact that it will ever have, even that will be like enormous.
true.
Wasn't there
Yeah,
that startup that
like
came up with, does anyone remember the name of that startup that came up with the voice chat kind of AI product where it can tell your
Eve,
emotions?
I think.
Oh, it was humane, right?
Eve, I think. Eve or Evie. It's emotional resistance or something like that.
Okay, yeah. So that was like that seems like I did not like that because it was like a separate model that was like somehow it was trying to like quantify like how happy you were or how sad you were or
oh,
something
do
by
you
like
mean
putting a number on it.
Hume?
That is not at
AQ.
all what I want to see.
Are you talking about Hume, Pun?
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry, I meant
yeah.
AQM.
Hume,
Yes,
not
Eve,
not
sorry.
Hume.
I thought it was Eve.
Yeah, so yeah, like what Spencer said, I agree. It seems like I don't know exactly what it is, but it does definitely
Maybe
seem
we
like
can
they just have like a separate
so.
classifier model that's just like having a pretty low dimensional classification
Yeah.
of like, hey, this is happy, and then just passing that into the language model. But yeah, like this would be way more nuanced of like what OpenAI might release.
Honestly, I think a pure an end-to-end audio in, audio out thing might be needed to have this emotional thing, stuff like that, like to have it very nuanced. But it's very hard,
Yeah,
I believe.
and imagine like it wouldn't necessarily even be limited to speaking with you in like words. Like theoretically it could even like start talking to you while having the sound of like ocean or waterfall in the background, and like all these different sounds it could simulate while speaking to you, or even it could change its voice to like if it recognizes that you're maybe in a sad state or something, and like maybe you're emphasizing certain words, it could use that information to better understand what you're trying to convey to it, and then it could even further emphasize certain words when it talks to you and have a different tone when it talks to you to like help you understand what it's saying as
Where can I
well.
buy this right now?
So just go over
Just
to ldj.ai and type in the OpenAI code there, and no, I'm not playing, but
just go to
just
YouTube
type
and
in OpenAI effect.
search for a rainforest noise on YouTube, and then use Siri.
Well, Siri, ChatGPT will be the same thing soon enough.
Allegedly.
Actually, yeah, what do you guys think is the chances of that? Because for a while, I was actually pretty confident that Apple would want to do like their own thing, but now I'm actually kind of like, I don't know if their announcement tomorrow is like as good of like a her in terms of naturalness and stuff, then I think, and especially if their agent system is unveiled tomorrow. I mean, I could see Apple being like, okay, that's pretty much perfectly what we want in the iPhone. Let's just partner up with OpenAI.
Okay, so here's the crazy thing about that. What I heard last, and I tried to get info for like I don't know Jimmy Apples about it, but he didn't really know anything. But like there was a bunch of reports about like Google Google Assistant, and like it's so crap, right? So like right when Gemini and ChatGPT were kind of head to head, like Gemini was just launched or whatever. Um, there were a bunch of reports about how Google's considering using ChatGPT for the voice assistant, and that's what I was like anticipating. That would have been so funny, because they're competing. Um, but then I see Apple, so I feel like it might be multiple companies who've talked to Apple about this. Sorry, talk to ChatGPT or talk to OpenAI about this. I don't know what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's yeah. I mean, vice versa. I've also heard of like Apple is approaching multiple different companies. I guess maybe shopping for deals of seeing what types of partnerships they could potentially do for like a next gen Siri. But I don't know. I try to take those rumors and like those headlines with a grain of salt because it's like, oh, Apple is about to partner up with Gemini, and then 1 week later you see like, oh, Apple is about to partner with Anthropic or mm, like maybe all of them have seeds of truth, but we'll just have to see.
I mean, Sam has definitely shown Tim Cook whatever they're going to show us on Monday. So, if anything, this might just be an indication that it is like really fucking good.
What makes you say that? Because like the
Well,
reports so far.
there were I think it was the information, or actually maybe this wasn't the information, but there was an article out back in I think March of that OpenAI was like showcasing the new GPT improvements or whatever
Mm.
to some businesses or like did you see that?
Yeah, I think I vaguely remember seeing something like
So
that.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, surely if they were having discussions with Tim Cook about like a Siri partnership, like obviously they showed them this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sundar Pichai and his he just recently had a talk with Bloomberg, and he did mention in that he views like the next step of AI to be the smartphone and then to glasses. I don't know if you guys saw that clip, and just yeah, generally suggested that the AI is going to open up an opportunity to kind of rethink the smartphone interface. So you have to imagine that Google's put a lot of effort into figuring out how to rework Android towards full like kind of AI integration where you can ask it to open apps or update settings or otherwise. I don't know if they'll release that in on Google I/O in Tuesday, but if they do, that definitely like will spark Apple to take to more quickly work to partner with maybe one of the whether it's ChatGPT or otherwise, OpenAI or otherwise. But yeah, I do wonder if that's maybe something we'll see in Google I/O.
I'm
Yeah.
Do you
also
guys
really
think?
curious about the other modalities too. Like, so Gemini 1.5 Pro, it can see videos, but it does not take in the audio, and it just does it at 1 frame per second. So obviously, like a lot of stuff is lost by doing that. Um, I wonder, like, when are we gonna have a model that can watch a video with audio at like at least 10 frames per second?
Yeah, I think that's where it could get like I don't know, maybe the next GPT-4 Lite model might have some type of multimodality like that. Like the Gemini demo that like it wasn't actually done in the way it was kind of portrayed, but
Yeah, yeah.
he was drawing something and it's like in real time without him having to prompt it, or at least that's what we thought. We thought that without having to prompt it, it's able to respond and things like that. It turned out they were actually like prompting it and it was edited together and things like that. But like, if OpenAI ends up revealing a model that you can actually do that whole type of demo without having to prompt the model and edit a video together, like that could be pretty significant, like that next jump in autonomy and like agent function.
Have you guys seen
Yeah.
Open Interpreter?
You said open interpreter?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, but then that still just uses like the GPT-4 models and stuff as like the backbone for it. And so actually I think whatever OpenAI reveals tomorrow, assuming it's some type of like better, cheaper, faster multimodal model, I think like Open Interpreter would be able to benefit from that because that's like exactly what makes that great too. But yeah,
I have
it's
a
pretty.
very difficult question.
What do you say?
How would you train an end-to-end audio to audio and kind of vision also model? I think JEPA is one of the approaches that Jan is very focused on.
Yeah, right now the JEPA models I think are mostly just like video only or image only, but they plan to like eventually have that integrated into like a multimodal model. But I think like I guess the best way you would have the traditional way of doing like multimodal models, which is probably not the most ideal way, is actually just taking like a visual encoder and then almost kind of like Frankensteining the already pre-trained visual encoder to the LLM architecture, and then you train it end to end all together as one model on like further data, almost like a continued pre-training or fine-tuning. That's kind of like the current popular way of doing it, at least like in open source, and that's theorized to be how like GPT-4 kind of did it. But ideally, you have it like all the way from scratch, actually, as one cohesive architecture that's able to do those things. So I don't know. It's still like a lot of open questions and a lot of different proposed methods. It's not really clear what is the single best way.
Also, I just thought about um, OpenAI like preparing for a huge in um in
You're cutting out for
ChatGPT
me now.
because
I don't
they
know.
well,
Is he cutting out for you guys too?
Yeah, Spencer, I think your
Yeah.
Wi-Fi is a little choppy right now. We can't quite hear you.
oh okay.
Oh, it sounds better now. Go ahead.
So clear now.
No, it's still choppy a bit for me.
Damn. Maybe just a little slow.
Can we just go
I don't
back
know.
to the days where you could have like just extend the antenna out of your cell phone?
True, we need that. Dude, it's crazy that we're getting away with these tiny little embedded antennas.
True, yeah.
Good evening,
Hey
guys.
Spencer, try Spencer.
Can you guys? Okay.
Hey, Fedru.
Here, well, let's do one last attempt with Spencer. Try saying ABC 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, Spencer, I don't
It's
think.
not like it keeps shutting my mic off.
Oh, now I can hear you.
Okay, but when it was just it kept shutting my mic off for some reason. Okay. Um oh right, what I was gonna say is OpenAI is preparing for like a huge increase in traffic to ChatGPT because they just changed the domain name to chatgpt.com. So it's like I think that they think that like very soon there's gonna be a lot more people going to like wanting to try ChatGPT, and they wanted to get out in front of that by changing the domain name to make it like as easy as possible.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that also suggests that the model they're rolling out is going to be super cheap for inference if they're confident that they're going to be able to handle all that capacity.
Yeah, I feel like we should here, actually I'm gonna make a list for myself right now, but like just in terms of the things that we know for sure are like things that might be hinting at for what's coming tomorrow. Okay, for sure we know that GPT-4 Lite is referenced in the code. We know that there is models called like GPT-2 chatbot and things like that. And then we know about the subdomain called agent chat. What else? Oh, the phone call stuff in the code, right? Did you guys see that?
Yep.
When you say code here, you just mean like the model will respond with these kinds of strings.
When I say like in the code, I mean like when like people like scouting and scraping like inside of the interface and HTML of like ChatGPT website end up like in the process of digging around, they find references to something like GPT-4 Lite and things like that.
Okay.
And then also like the phone call stuff, which there was like some references to like decline call, answer call, things like that. That could be like two different things. It could mean like the model can call people for you, or it could mean like whenever the model needs to ask clarifying questions, or notify you about something, it can call you, or maybe both.
Isn't it like more the chatbot or the Devin? I think they had an SMS thing where it tells you to get stuff done or something.
Yeah, maybe. Sorry if you guys hear my dog, by the way. Can you, or is my noise suppression
Like,
my dog well?
he's like,
Okay. Oh, there's also the search stuff. Okay, so we do know there's some search thing in the code. I know they said that it's not a search engine, but maybe it's kind of like they're not having a dedicated search engine. However, they are having like some way better search integration that the model could use instead of like the current slow, inaccurate method of searching the web that GPT-4 currently does. Or do you guys think that like there's not going to be like any search improvements at all announced since they said that it won't be a search engine?
Tomorrow, I don't know. I suspect nothing. Just because they said
there's a search domain. Search stuff.
Yeah, there's that too. Search.chatgpt.com or something like that.
Did they talk about the ending of the Her show? Or is it like a chat
Yeah, I should look
reference?
it up. I mean, like as much of like a direct thing, but there was like Sam Altman did like Spencer's tweet saying he's watching her, and well, I think like an OpenAI employee also had it in his cover photo or something like that, right?
yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, also yesterday actually, or it was posted like within the past couple days, but I don't know if it's recorded. But Sam Altman was on a podcast, like the All In podcast, with I think like Jason Calacanis. I think that's how you, I forgot how you pronounce his last name, but he was on that All In podcast, and he mentioned something along the lines of like he said like he feels like the iPhone is like the current best overall form factor or something like that. Like he was kind of hyping up the iPhone in a way where I feel like I haven't really seen him like directly endorse something. And I feel like maybe that's hinting at some type of partnership that is pretty like he's pretty confident about happening between Apple and OpenAI. I don't know. That's kind of me looking too deep into things, so
Mhm.
I don't really think Apple will partner with Google for the AI. If they can't train it, I mean, the most reasonable for them to work with is OpenAI because Google maintains Android, which is like the biggest competitor for iOS. It wouldn't make
yeah,
sense for them to like.
I agree they probably wouldn't do it with Google. However, I think the option in my mind is more, will Apple do it themselves or will Apple go with OpenAI? Because I do think it's possible that Apple could do something really good themselves. However, the timeline of which they could execute on that, I'm not exactly sure it's like something that they'd be comfortable waiting for, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. I did see an article about them working on data center chips, and so like I certainly think that they would love if they could do it themselves. But if it's going to take them a year or two, they cannot just sit and on their laurels and wait to deploy this. People would start if the Android starts to get that integrated well enough. I can't imagine too many people would switch, but it would definitely could cause that if the AI gets good enough, and so I do expect even a temporary partnership with OpenAI would make a lot of sense.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, imagine the OpenAI event begins and the first person you see walk out is Tim Cook. Crazy.
You know what's interesting? Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Yep, we can.
Wait, I just want to say
So
real quick on LDJ's last point. What if the whole thing tomorrow is just Siri?
Yeah, true. Like it's like there's just a partnership with Apple and like an agent thing for Siri. Yeah, that'd be crazy.
So something that I think is interesting is that on two of
Honestly, I
Sam
don't really
Altman's
think
recent
there's no reason.
And what better place to begin
Sorry, can you
than
go
with
Hold on,
Spencer
Spencer.
first?
our noble line?
Yeah, Spencer was talking.
um something I think is
Right.
interesting is in two recent Sam Altman interviews, he like went out of his way to talk about humanoid robots, like without being prompted to do that.
Oh,
That's
he did.
interesting.
Was it the All In podcast? Was that one of them?
Yeah, that was one of them, and then there was one other one like last week or something.
I wonder what is like. I wonder if that's just one of the only two interviews that he's done ever since the Figure partnership has been announced, or if even after the Figure partnership, he's already had interviews where he never mentioned autonomous robots, and then just now is mentioning autonomous robots again.
Yeah, well, maybe, but I think it suggests like something. I think it's because like I've watched like every single one of Sam's interviews over the past like 2 years, like every single one, even though it's like painful because like he never says anything interesting. But he really like I don't think he used to like mention humanoid robots at all. Like so now that he's like going out of his way to talk about how excited he is about it, I think it shows that like he's actually like really dedicated to that. So like the Figure partnership is not just like it's not just like a small thing, it's like a big deal for them. Or not necessarily the Figure partnership, just humanoid robots in general are like a big deal for
Their
OpenAI.
formation is broken.
Yeah, I mean, even with like a voice like her assistant that we're talking about, like that would just the naturalness and stuff from that would make a way better like autonomous robot that could take orders from you, especially if it's like way better latency. Because with way better latency, that also means that it could self-correct and reevaluate like its surroundings more quickly as well. And that could maybe enable some like really interesting demos that could be shown.
Oh wait, can I mention one thing? Like I haven't seen anyone talk about this, and I'm actually like I just remembered, and I think it's kind of a big deal. Did you see Brad Lightcap's one of Brad Lightcap's interviews where he said that like he thinks that like the rate of improvement between models is going to accelerate?
Um, like I would not be surprised if he said that in one of them, but I don't like particularly remember seeing that. I saw two of his interviews. I think one of them he did an interview with NVIDIA at like GTC, and then another one was like him next to Sam Altman, being interviewed on some couch somewhere in San Francisco, probably.
Yeah, this was after the couch interview, but it was like
Okay.
shocking to me because he said that because what Sam has been saying is that just like the rate of progress will continue. So like GPT-5 to GPT-6 will be like GPT-2 to GPT-3.
Yeah.
But what Brad Lightcap said is that like the rate of improvement will accelerate. Like he's like he was talking about like the derivative, and that like is
Yeah.
the first time I've ever heard one of them say something like that. And like I think that's kind of like a really big deal if he didn't misspeak. Like if what he said is actually correct.
Yeah.
One of the things you said earlier is that like
Give them no
people
quarter.
are using GPT 3.5 and not even recognizing that the scaling laws exist with GPT 4. But I feel like a lot of people also, even if they use GPT 4, like they just have this thought that okay, this is it. This is like we're just going to continue to integrate this level of intelligence into the economy over the next few years, and nothing's going to change. The base models aren't going to get way better. The scaling laws don't exist. It's going to stay at GPT 4, and I just can't get over how wrong I feel like people's projections of what
Yep.
this next few years are going to look like
And
on all of the different metrics of like the therapists, the doctors, the lawyers, the tutors, like the amount of impact of the humanoid robots. It's going to be radical, and it's going to it is going to feel like just a massive acceleration. And people aren't seeing it.
I think like I think it's required for someone to actually see the bigger picture about like what's going on. I think it's required that you have to have used GPT-3 at some point, because otherwise like you're not gonna like feel it. Like I think that if I had not been using GPT-3 prior to ChatGPT coming out, I think I would have been much slower to like to start to realize what was going on, right? But because I had been using GPT-3 and I was able to see GPT-3 to GPT 3.5 to GPT-4, it clicked for me easily because but so few people have used GPT-3.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, part of it is also understanding that the underlying technology is not like some chat dialogue branch system, and that the fact that it's actually like these artificial neural networks that is being scaled from GPT-3 to GPT-4, and it's like, yeah, because some people still genuinely think that when they use ChatGPT, it's just like a bunch of branches of conversation hard coded into like the system, that it's like, you know what I mean? Like,
I feel like people don't realize how complicated that would be. I mean, not just complicated, impossible.
yeah, I mean, like Siri was, or I think at least the original Siri, from what I remember hearing, it was quite literally like a super complicated system that involved a bunch of people literally like borderline manually having to write, thousands of different possibilities within dialogue trees and doing things like that. And
Yeah,
so,
but the people who think that, they must be using ChatGPT and like the way they would use Google. Like, what is a porcupine? You know?
yeah, or like the way that they would use Siri.
Yeah, and I feel like that's like everyone's experience. Like their first instinct is to use it, is to treat it like a search engine.
Yeah, and that, like, to a degree, that's like sometimes it's difficult, even for me sometimes. It's like when I first used ChatGPT, it's difficult to think about like what are the questions or prompts I could give it to most take advantage of its capabilities, because it's like never had an opportunity to like try to formulate questions of this type of before, you know what I mean? Like, does that kind of make sense? Like, since you never have experience of like having to interact with something like that, it's like difficult sometimes to think of how you do it.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to say like pretend it's a human. I think that's just probably like if you're like showing this
Yeah,
tool to
exactly.
someone for the first time, you just have to say like just treat it exactly as you would treat a human.
Yeah, and I think with like the voice system, it'll even be next level where you could even like start being sarcastic with it and telling jokes to it, and then it actually matches your energy and is like being sarcastic back to you in like low latency. I think that'll be crazy. I think people don't realize how weird that will feel.
I wonder, how do you guys expect this? Since I do think there's a
Oh,
very good chance, given the him liking that tweet and some of these other changes, I do wonder, like, how do you guys think the low latency might work? Like, it would be awesome if it was just like a stream of audio to the GPU and a stream of audio out. Um, but like then it's like, is it asynchronously? Is it like two channels? A channel where it's constantly taking in the input and constantly sending you output, or is it like gonna somehow be sliced up? I guess we really have no way of knowing that, but I'm just excited to see like how they try and get the low latency, quality conversation, voice
Confidence surges
conversations,
as the enemy
and
crumbles.
it's unclear to me like how the transformer, how the architecture can really support that.
I think like the basic way you would do it is just having like a single stream of audio where at some point the model can actually decide itself. Like, I guess you'd have to have some component of the model maybe deciding, hey, this is when is the best moment to like determine when the person stopped talking, or maybe they even have like a really small dedicated model specifically to deciding when you've actually stopped talking. And then from there, as soon as that gets cut off, it immediately transfers all the audio into the input and starts processing. And then it just like low latency enough to where that whole process of processing your input and
As the
then
fiend
processing that output
falls,
audio is just like
a
so
faint
fast
hope
that it happens
blossoms.
like in under a few hundred milliseconds.
Yeah, I do like the idea of like maybe two models working in tandem to make it seamless.
I there was some kind of thing I was looking at before, where there is actually a stream of audio and a stream of audio that gets in and gets out, but that you could have some kind of conditioning of what the output could look like. Maybe the GPT-4's output, could be working in tandem with that to allow, like, this natural voice. You could say that, like, yeah, that could be something very interesting. I saw it somewhere. I don't remember exactly where the architecture was. Do you know anything about?
Uh, The last part of what you said, it's like was a little bit garbled for me. I didn't fully hear what you said.
Can you hear me? Low.
Can you guys hear Brian, or
Remind
he
yourself
like
that
is still cutting out a bit
overconfidence
for
is
me?
a
But
slow
maybe it's
and
just my connection.
insidious killer.
No, I do think Rami, we're having a bit of a connection issue.
Okay.
What about now?
Yeah, I think it's fair enough.
an input basically where the model has a constant stream of input and on top of the model. That's something interesting I looked at earlier. Maybe something like that could be the case. Because one of the head of I think it's called audio-based AGI or something. In OpenAI, he is the head of audio-based AGI and he works on that stuff. It could make sense that it's a constant, kind of a stream of input-output, where it does not require the person to speak before responding. Or
Yeah, I mean theoretically, like, I mean if you have low enough latency, like sequentially, then it might feel like as if it can basically process audio and input and output at the same time, even though it's technically not, but it's just so fast that it feels like it is. But I think like theoretically, I think the kind of the magical use case that would really be enabled if it has like smart enough audio understanding and good enough low latency would be if the model can actually sing along with you, and you ask it like, hey, you know the song, like, can you start the melody, and then you just start like singing a song, and it literally is just syncing up with you, singing along with you, and then you change like the melody in a way where it's not actually how the original song is, but it's still able to like understand the direction you're going with that melody and like continue to stay in sync with your harmony.
it's very crazy that audio-based the models that exist right now. I mean, the human brain basically has a 3D depth of audio. Maybe it's because we have ears, but still, we can know exactly when one person is speaking. Like the context awareness of the human audio processing is very amazing.
Death waits.
I think that would be
For the
required for
slightest
something
lapse
like
in
what you're
concentration.
saying, where I mean, to sing along with AI, because it would make sense because it can't take the input plus getting the output out without having understanding of who's speaking.
Yeah, also architecturally, I feel like Sam Altman has been talking a lot about adaptive compute over the past few months. And Spencer, you said you watched like every one of his interviews, so maybe you've heard this too. But it's like, actually, there's like a couple of quotes here I pulled up in notes where he said this a few months ago on the Bill Gates podcast. He said, quote, at a minimum, it seems like we need some sort of adaptive compute. Right now, we spend the same amount of compute on each token, a dumb one, or figuring out some complicated math. And he made like some other comments on that. It's like I wonder how it would work if maybe
As
GPT-4
victories
Lite,
mount,
like at its
so
base
too
level
will
of compute or whatever, is already a little bit better than regular GPT-4, and that's like available for free users. But then for paid users, there's like this extra level of
A fortune
compute that GPT-4
waiting
Lite
to
can
be
use, and it's like it's still just as fast if you want to use the basic prompts and basic like tasks. But if you want to do more difficult things, like in some way they allow a higher rate limit for the pro users of like how much more intensive tasks and how much like more compute you actually end up being able to get out of the model, if that makes sense. But I wonder how they would actually quantify that and explain that to the user if they do that.
Isn't this already done with a mixture of experts thing that has different kind of compute like size? I think it's
Mm-hmm.
already been done. I don't
Because
remember.
experts like GPT-4, or at least the original GPT-4, is theorized to be like something like 16 experts, and then maybe you have like 2 of them active. But it's like for every single token, you always are activating like the same amount of parameters pretty much for every token, unless you do like some more interesting new advanced type of MOE or something like that. But like the typical way of doing MOE, it's still the same amount of parameters and compute for every single token that you do.
Well,
No, there's an
we did,
mixture of depths, I think.
yeah,
Yeah,
we did
mixture of depth.
we did something last year
if only
where
treasure
basically we
could staunch
selectively
the
skip
flow.
layers through each
Otherworldly
transformer
corruption.
block, and then Google published a very similar paper called Demo D.
Yeah, there was also
But
there, there was a paper actually released by Meta, literally just it's for dense models, but it's literally called like layer skip, and it literally just like depending on maybe if you need way less compute for a certain token and it's way easier to predict a certain token, it just only uses like 2 of the layers instead of like all 30 or whatever.
Mhm.
And then maybe not 2, but you know, like some way lower amount, and it just skips all the other layers.
Exactly.
Something interesting I think from the All In podcast. Chamath was like, okay, so the models are going to plateau because they're all going to be trained on the whole internet, and then it's just going to be an arms race for proprietary data. And then
Yeah.
Sam was like, actually no, that's like not how it's going to be, because training data will become less valuable over time as the models get smarter. And that's been like
Oh, I think
They got him.
Maybe did he cut out for you guys too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, sorry, someone was calling me just now.
Oh, okay.
Wait, so I was saying that
You're talking about how Chamath was like, oh, they're going to plateau because they're going to be trained on all the data. And then Sam Altman was like, no, actually, as the models get bigger and smarter, they actually are more data efficient and require less data.
Yeah, so I feel like there's like this narrative that like proprietary data is going to be super important. And I feel like actually probably no, it's just going to be like compute is more important. And Sam is like confirming that. And I don't even think it like registered with Chamath that like Sam really. I don't think it registered with him even.
Yeah, and I feel like I mean that matches up I think with like the actual consensus of a lot of people doing the research is like yeah, like the data problem, like we know for a fact that you can do things like learn how to drive with only just a few hours of learning of driving data, and we know that's possible because the human brain is an architecture that's able to do that, right? So it's like we can at least know that if there is any ceiling in terms of architectural advancement and things like that, like the human brain, even if the human brain is the max ceiling of that, we're still far from that right now.
Well, to be fair, everybody who learns how to drive also has like 6,000 days of living in the 3D world.
Palpable fear.
True, yeah. Of like, and you can consider that like an advanced pre-training stage, right? It's like, but all of that data is essentially like, I guess you can call it not necessarily free, but like it's like it's not data that's like a specific company has or something. It's just by putting a robot out into the real world or strapping cameras to people's heads and having sensors on their bodies, like this is just data that you can get objective truth for just by real world data, you know, or even simulation.
I don't think that's possible. I think you need an action perception model. You also have to act in that world to see the kind of the outcome of that. Do you guys know any concept called predictive coding? In neuroscience, it's been applied to machine learning, and there are some very interesting things about it.
Have you heard of Thousands Brains theory of intelligence?
Sorry, again, you got cut off.
Have you heard of the book or theory related to the Thousands Brain theory of intelligence?
Boltzmann or Boltzmann?
No, 1,000 like 1,000.
No, I haven't.
It's I don't know if it's maybe related to what you're talking about, but it talks about like the concept of how the human brain is doing, like it's constantly trying to predict what the next instantaneous moment of like the world state is, and then using that information along with what is the most ideal next sequence of action it should take within that world state. And like, is that kind of what you're talking about with
You
predictive
mean
coding?
active inference?
Yeah.
Active inference might be related.
No, active inference is for, it's a simplified version of that. Predictive coding is literally that. It's just kind of predicting the next. Not only it's on the neuron level. It's not on like the brain or collective level. It's each neuron is a predictive coding agent. It kind of tries to predict what's going to happen, which kind of impulse is going to receive, and that on a hierarchical level allows you to have something called a top down and bottom up kind of perception, where the top person layers, where some collection of neurons or kind of some cohort of neurons basically predict, higher level kind of, or steps, and the bottom up basically tries to predict, okay, here something happened. This visual stimuli I expect is not happening, and it sends it up to the hierarchy, and the hierarchy basically distributes that error and learns together. This was actually done on a real machine learning model, like deep learning models, and on kind of on a different kind of shapes. And what they figured out was on the study, it back propagation was 100 times more efficient than predictive coding on actual like on digital artificial neural networks, because like they have the same results. They were able to reproduce the effects of back propagation, but it took a longer time, like more compute, and that's something very interesting I just learned.
Yeah, I just was looking through some of my notes, by the way, of like some quotes that I've heard Tim Alton say on different podcasts, and I just realized there is a specific quote he said in the Lex Friedman podcast just like a few months ago, where he used the word magical. Where I mean, like, that's a word that people use for a lot of things sometimes, but like, he's been using the word magical a couple times to reference the Monday event. So I'll just read this quote if you guys are interested. It says, quote, "When GPT can help on longer horizon tasks, break down something in multiple steps, maybe execute some of those steps, search the internet, write code, whatever, put that together. When that works, which is not very often, it's very magical." He said that it's in 2024 Lex Friedman podcast. And then he said another thing here, or a couple other things. He said on the same podcast, "You want an AI to be able to think harder about a harder problem and answer more quickly about an easier problem. I think that will be important. Customizability and personalization will also be very important. People want very different things out of GPT-4, different styles, different sets of assumptions. We'll make all that possible. And then also the ability to have it use your own data, the ability to know about you, your email, your calendar, how you like appointments booked, connected to other outside data sources. All of that, those will be some of the most important areas of improvement." End quote. And I find like that interesting because it sounds like that's one of the few moments where he actually references like a set of capabilities or features as if it's like we're definitely going to bring this. Like this is not speculation, like this will be an important area of improvement that we will deliver. All right. So
I think
maybe that could be a lot of agent stuff. Yeah, sorry, go on.
the orchestration of LMs of some sort, I don't really think that is gonna fly very well. Um, Maybe I'm wrong, but I really don't see that. I mean, maybe with speed you can have a lot of different things, but still, if you don't have different models doing different things, on a level, you'd require a different branching of thoughts, right? Like,
I don't think he's saying
Wealth
different
beyond
models.
measure.
So, like in the quote, he doesn't
Rewarded to the
mention different
brave
models
and
or
the
anything like that. He's
foolhardy
just saying
alike.
when you can have a model that is just being able to break down things into multiple steps and being able to like better plan long-term things and being able to like execute things that
Glittering
require multiple
gold,
step
trinkets and
back-to-back steps,
baubles,
like in order to
paid
achieve
for
the
in
final goal.
blood.
Like when a model can do all those things and plan all those things out, then it will be like magical.
I
You get what I
agree
mean?
with it,
Like
but
it doesn't
Jan
have
does
to
not
be
agree with
multiple.
it.
Yeah.
Sorry, you got cut off. I thought you finished.
Sorry, yeah, I was just saying like everything I just described, like I think it's just being referenced as a single model, like just like how a human does all those things. But like right now GPT-4 can't really do like those longer horizon step-by-step things very well.
But the brain is kind of sparse. I think the brain has a lot of different models inside it, hierarchical word models that it can use to kind of do that. But GPT-4 is just
The
one huge chunk
twisted
model.
faces of the
I don't know
damned,
how much you can go far
piled
with
high
orchestrating
and
it.
cloaked in
I
malice.
think Jan also has a similar point where he specifically says about this longer horizon planning. You require different levels of kind of predictive. I think Jan says predictive coding exactly this, um, where that allows it to have this kind of long term planning.
And
I
maybe
can.
that's maybe that's what OpenAI is working on, better architectures for long horizon planning and things like that.
I disagree.
Okay, you want to expand on that?
No.
Okay. But yeah, like the longer horizon planning and things like that. I mean, I would kind of disagree that current models are just like monolithic one type of thing, because you do have like attention component, you have MLP and things like that. But even something like Jan LeCun's, you know, like path towards autonomous intelligence, like his whole chart about that. I guess what the main important factor that separates something from being called one model versus multiple different models is whether or not it's like fully differentiable, or whether or not there's actually fully end-to-end training and connections between all those components. And like in Jan LeCun's model, they are fully differentiable and are fully end-to-end trained together. And so I would still consider even Jan LeCun's vision as like one singular model, if that makes sense. You know, like they're not like different components talking to each other just like with words or things like that.
That is exactly the point. Predictive coding is not differentiable, by the way. Predictive coding can be implemented. It doesn't require differentiability. It learns to become.
Oh, you're cutting out a little bit.
Can you hear me? Hello?
I think so.
Yeah, wait. What about now?
Yep, I think you're good.
Predictive coding is a Hebbian learning model. So basically, it learns through neighborhood kind of error signal propagation. It learns. It learns through. It's an active perception model. Like you kind of try to predict something. If you get the predictive error wrong, it propagates to your neighbors, and the neighbors kind of get something wrong, and it propagates up. That is that does not require to be at all differentiable. And Jan specifically stated that he's looking for a predictive coding. In the, I think he's going into a direction with JEPA, which is I think a.
Like he has explicitly stated, like, I mean, I would say the brain probably, I'd say, like, trains and fully end to end with, like, you could divide all its components to however you want, but it's like a fully end to end training system, right? Where it's like all of its training at the same time with like the same task effectively. And yeah, if you read his path towards autonomous machine intelligence, I think he does explicitly state that he like is describing something that would be trained in like fully end to end.
Yeah, he's been talking about. I think it's not JEPA or something, because I've.
So there's JEPA. So do you know like that brain diagram that he has in one of his papers where it's like cost module?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so that's like not technically JEPA, but that's like his model for ideally how like long-term like autonomous intelligence could be achieved. And then JEPA is just like kind of like a higher level view of just joint embedding predictive architecture as a better replacement of like the current way of doing things. But here, I'm actually scrolling through the paper now. Dang. Yeah, if you just look up Path Towards Autonomous Intelligence, that's the paper where he describes all this stuff.
As the ghoulish collection scatters.
I saw that one, but he's been praising predictive coding on that paper and outside his talks. I assumed he's looking for an implementation that closely resembles the brain. I mean, it would be hard. I would agree that it would be hard because you can't have 100 billion sparse networks. You can't print something like that with about 100 trillion synapses, but it could be doable with a dense model.
Yeah. Oh, I found the paper or the exact quote here. So he has the brain diagram, and then right below it he says, Figure 2 is a system architecture for autonomous intelligence. All modules in this model are assumed to be differentiable in that a module feeding into another one can get gradient estimates of the cost scalar output with respect to its own output. But yeah, I do think that sparse activation is maybe the way to go. Spencer, do you remember seeing, or I'm not sure if you've seen it, but I'm assuming you have, the Gnome Brown deleted tweet where he said something like,
Yes,
like
I did see it.
imitation learning is not going to get you super intelligence, and I kind of agree with him. Like the new types of unsupervised reinforcement learning breakthroughs, I think are really going to be the next step.
Oh, it was you don't get superhuman performance. Wait, am I thinking of the right one?
I think so. I think he says something like, you don't get superhuman intelligence from doing imitation learning.
But you know, there was an Ilya quote that basically contradicts that by saying, look, it doesn't matter if we don't have like 500 IQ humans. If a model predicts the world closely enough, you can just tell it to act like one.
Yeah, so
true.
Ilya definitely thinks that you can get there just through next token prediction on just like average human data. And I think that Dario thinks that too, based on what he said in a recent interview where he said something along those lines as well.
But
I mean,
I think
not like they're necessarily right. Like, I don't want to just like appeal to authority and that's it. But I mean, it is significant to think
I think what I think is probably true is like, sure, it may be possible that theoretically by scaling up with enough parameters and just continuing imitation learning that you can get these superhuman abilities. However, I think probably all three of those people, like Gnome Brown, Ilya, and Dario, probably all agree that there is some other types of training techniques or breakthroughs that could happen that would get you there more efficiently and faster to superhuman intelligence, as opposed to if you just tried scaling up the parameters without any training technique or architecture breakthroughs.
Yeah, and by the way, like even if our current paradigm doesn't get us to like better than human level, I think we're in great shape no matter what. Like, because even if we just get to like smart human level, as long as we build out a lot of compute infrastructure, and as long as we get agents to work with like long horizon planning and everything, even if we're just at like smart human level, we can just have like billions of, you know, smart AI agents working 24/7 to find better architectures.
Injury and
And the very act of those agents working in the real world with like those hard-coded frameworks to some extent will generate a bunch of like real-world interaction data that could then be used to better train like these imitation learning models from like a better distribution.
I did really enjoy hearing Nat Friedman's analogy, and I think it touches on this, which is that we're kind of about to discover a continent with 100 billion, and he like stressed that it's like an order of magnitude more than current humans, 100 million smart humans that are willing to work for free, and yeah, I think that shows really well that even if we don't get too much better than kind of as smart as humans, we're still in for an awesome world.
Wait, who said that quote, Dario?
No, it was Nat Friedman.
Oh, Nat Friedman.
Yeah, it was Nat Friedman on Peter Diamandis with Emod.
Yeah, I remember hearing that, and I was trying to remember, like, yeah, it was like that was like within the last couple of months or something, right?
Yeah, just I think this month. Here, I'll find it on Sarah Boostra's
Yeah, it's a good quote. Yeah, it's something like, soon we're going to stumble upon a continent of really smart humans.
What's up?
And also, sorry, yeah, somebody else is talking. My bad.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
I think, yeah.
Decimated.
What I
The wounds of war can be healed, but never healed.
The rat are chewing on your telephone lines, man.
I think it's that cat in LG Day's photo.
How about now?
Yep.
I think it's better, yeah.
So what I really want to see is Joe Biden announce like have to come out with some sort of like emergency executive order to fast track building a bunker
Yeah, but I don't think
Yeah,
he would ever
mhm.
do that because his whole thing is like anti-nuclear.
No, not true.
Yeah, I mean, like,
He was
I
in
mean, you never
Michigan or
know.
Wisconsin or whatever, like a few days ago. He was touting nuclear. No, wait, this was not in Wisconsin. Sorry, I'm thinking of the wrong thing. But this was a few weeks ago. He was.
I think when you have like a big enough social
A
change, I
momentary
mean,
abatement.
I think most of us could agree, like almost any politician, if there's a big enough social change in like the agreement of a certain thing, then that politician will also kind of just change their public facing view on that just to, you know, appease the people, because why wouldn't you, right? Like, so I think if you get to a point where it's like 40% of America is like accepting of nuclear to like within a couple of years all of a sudden like 90% of Americans want nuclear, then I could see, regardless of who the president is, like a big type of nuclear deal happening, you know?
But I just feel like there's probably a lot of pressure right now on the administration to like, just use national security concerns. You know, like
These
from like
nightmarish creatures can be
moment.
felled. They can be beaten.
Do you believe the regulatory capture narrative?
Circle in the dark. The battle may yet be won.
No, I don't think that Sam is trying to like stomp out startups.
Same. What about you, LDJ?
Can I give my thoughts on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, I think Sam Altman right now is not on the regulatory capture because it costs like $100 million to train a model. So I think that's the reason why. But if that changes, I think we're gonna see a changing tone after that. So there's like only 4 companies that can train a model like Llama or GPT-4 right now. I think we saw Rika. You guys saw that model?
Yep.
That was like I don't know how much money it cost to train. But I think like 50 million, something like that. But still, it's really hard to get to train these models. So that's why I don't think.
Tell me about it, man.
I haven't heard a good reason to not think that superintelligence, raw superintelligence, wouldn't be harmful, and how you wouldn't want to put in some kind of regulation to stop its propagation. I definitely would be very upset if we stop non-harmful superintelligence, but I just have not heard any good argument about why we shouldn't just stop raw superintelligence that will do anything the users ask from propagating.
Wait, why we shouldn't?
Or why we shouldn't stop it. Like, I think we should stop just raw superintelligence from propagating. Harmless superintelligence, like, I don't think we should probably stop that from propagating, but just kind of raw, pure superintelligence that'll do anything a user asks seems like not something we should just kind of throw out into all of society.
I don't understand why the question is. Sorry, I don't understand why the question is from the direction of should we allow it to propagate. I think like you should approach it from the other end. Why would you stop it from propagating? I think that's
because it could be harmful. Like if it's not harmful, then certainly propagate it. But if you create something that propagating it is inherently harmful, then probably you shouldn't propagate it.
Everything can be harmful. I mean, like electricity can be harmful. People can use electricity for all sorts of really harmful things.
Yeah, like we already sexually select.
Right, but like we don't ban electricity.
Yeah.
But I think their argument for that is that electricity stuff does it. Like if you tell electricity to like kill people, and if it could, like that would be different, right?
It can. You can kill a lot of people with electricity.
No, but I'm saying like you write a prompt to a electricity to kill people. You know what I mean? Like it's a little bit different, I think, in that domain.
But
But
fundamentally, it's sort of the same in terms of something being like dual use. It's a thing that people use in
you're cutting, Spencer.
Yeah, I just won't talk anymore.
He's just
I'm tired of cutting
he's
out.
just talking at a higher token rate. I can hear him.
Yeah, I think the argument changes if it's a really AGI, right? If it's just like a good language model, I think everyone should have access. But if it could do like anything that you could ask, like when using the terminal, it could hack in system, like
Okay, so like
I don't know. It kind of hard to imagine what a true system a true intelligent system would be able to do.
Yeah, and that is what Sam Altman like. He's not claiming that we should go after the current state models. They like any kind of attempt to claim that he's trying to do regulatory capture. Like if it's honest, it has to acknowledge that he's calling for future models with greater capability from being, having those kinds of models unregulated. And yeah, I mean certainly things are dual use, but and I don't think we should prevent it all. And there are some like some things that we're just going to have to accept in order to get the benefit. But I do think that there's at least some reason we should regulate against the kind of regulate against the technology in some form. Because yeah, like being able to say, hey, I want you to I want you to destroy this guy's life. He pissed me off today, and you like send your AI.
Like
your AI is just like, sure, I'll do that as well as I can.
like a chatbot hiring a hitman on 4chan or dark web, something like that. I don't know. Yeah, it could be possible, right? Yeah. It could be a way to do it. If we have like a true AGI system, it could do anything with the internet. Like we can do anything with the internet. So that's I think the main contention. So what you guys are expecting for tomorrow? I thought you guys are expecting a voice assistant.
Yeah, something like that.
I expect to be meeting my new girlfriend.
Yeah. I personally think it's gonna be an incremental. I don't know. I don't think it's gonna be like a breakthrough that we haven't seen before.
I think they're gonna show some sort of breakthrough, but it's not gonna be an LLM like intelligence.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I think they're gonna show some sort of breakthrough, either like a breakthrough audio language model.
Oh, audio, it's really good. I've made a video on their voice engine. It's really good.
Yeah, and I mean I think they can do even better than that. I don't know what exactly they're gonna show, but I'm sure it's gonna be some sort of breakthrough. I just don't think it's gonna be GPT-5 or anything.
Do you think it's gonna be reasoning?
Maybe a bit.
Like much model.
I had some thought, John, about what you said, the 3D thing. Do you know that babies start, kind of seeing 3D when they're like 4 months old? Before that, the visuals are in 2D. And how they test it is babies don't react to being, shown cliffs before like being 4 months old. They only start hearing it after 4 months being 4 months old. It's very crazy, but like I think I agree with that point.
Yeah, for me it was 1 month.
I think it makes sense a little bit. Because we gotta do some priors to be able to see, like for example, I think we do have since birth. I think we have some capability of learning language, but you gotta adapt like for the place that you were born. Like you have a pre-trained model when you were born because of evolution, and you just fine tune on your native tongue. I think there must be. Uh,
I don't really think evolution is training. I think it's an architecture thing. I think it's very misstated that it's evolution is a training mechanism. A lot of people assume that evolution kind of creates that, but I highly doubt evolution has anything to do with any training. Um, I mean, the body itself, it's not just the brain, but the body itself, even your heart, your liver, all of them contribute to that brain's kind of state. And I really think it's an architecture. It's not a training process.
but what changes the architecture is the environment, right? Like the environment changes how we how we how evolution happens, right?
Mm,
If you're thinking in reinforcement learning terms, the agent is adapting to the environment. So the environment shapes the agent.
but that's specifically at architectures. It has nothing to do with. I mean, you learn how to interact with the architecture when you like using your hand, for example. If it's like deformed, you would not be able to use your hand, right? Like that is a learning process. You would not know that a hand does a
Yeah, but
specific
that's
thing
that's
for,
like
you know.
after hundreds of millions of years, right? It's not from the beginning.
Patched up.
Yeah, but like it's not a training process. You do not learn anything from evolution. It just builds the architecture. You learn how
But
to use the
I
architecture.
agree with you. But what I'm saying that we have a lot of priors that we already have gotten, like the visual system, language.
Annihilated.
It is interesting to see non-human animals. They're so much better adapted on day one. Like clearly there's a lot of instinct in a human, but it's so much
More
weaker
dust.
on day one and needs
More
to adapt
ashes.
while it's alive
disappointment.
much longer.
Yeah, it's kind of
This is about like the
it's
brain,
kind of a paradox.
the brain size of humans. Yeah,
Well, I think it's more of a trade-off
the
than a
brain.
paradox. It's trade-off between instinct and maximum capability, flexibility.
Yeah, but the one animal that takes longer to grow is the one that
Success
has more
so
capability.
clearly in view. Or is it merely a trick of the light?
I think that the maternal instincts of humans are adapted such that the babies are being born smaller with their brains smaller, stuff like that. Um, I've seen that theory once. I think it's one widely accepted one. John, Ayo, can you help us as a speaker? He knows much more than me.
Who?
Ayo, I think he's on top of the listener list.
Oh, he's not requested.
So for example, do you guys think that in this millennium we're gonna converge? Like all cultures are gonna converge?
I don't know about that. I think geographic separation is going to keep cultures distinct for a little bit. Not as distinct as they have been, but I don't think we'll converge.
I think it'll be the opposite. I think there'll be like an explosion of like all sorts of really unique cultures as like humanity spreads throughout the galaxy.
You say like.
Well, yeah, I mean that's even
way
more severe
that's like
separation.
far right than what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm talking about like on Earth in the next little bit, but I agree completely with Spencer in the long run. Like we don't have any sort of solution for the logistical gap between planets right now. It's a very significant, and it seems almost impossible that we'd be able to maintain like a consistent civilization. Never mind the
And
culture.
I actually think that's actually a good thing. I think it's actually, I might be completely wrong, but no one has made an argument to me that has like made me change my mind yet. I think it's a good thing, assuming that the speed of light can actually never be cracked. I think it would be good for a civilization to spread out like as much as possible, because it protects you.
Yeah,
It protects you from
Yeah.
danger.
it's massive for safety because the gravity well is so deep on a star system that there's, as far as we know within known physics, there's no economical reason why you would ever invade another star system. It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's not even what I meant. I just meant that in terms of the speed of light, you can it's hard. So you can, if you have like a series of like, if you have a way to communicate where like the communication is traveling at light speed, but there's no objects that can travel at light speed. If there's like a weapon that's coming at you at like 99% the speed of light, and you want to have as much time as possible to like as much advance warning as possible, you want to be as far away as possible because that gap like compounds over time.
Yeah,
I might have explained that terribly. I don't know if that makes any sense
No,
to you.
I think you're right. And a good thing about the way the speed of light works, according to what we know about relativity, is that no matter how close you get to it, light is still always much faster. And so, yeah, in terms of ballistics, like you'll always be able to see and shoot down ballistics. But also, I want to say on the weapon front, I think a lot of the weapons are going to be photonic, so you can never really protect against those.
Wait,
One way I
you're saying
challenge this-
you're saying there could be a weapon that travels at light speed?
Yeah, light.
Well, how could light be a weapon?
A
Sorry,
laser.
that might be
Laser.
super stupid. I'm like, I have no
Lasers.
idea. So if it's obvious, like, I don't know.
Yeah, lasers.
Laser.
Oh,
You can
wait,
also
lasers are
accelerate
just
Yeah,
light.
yeah,
photons with the
lasers.
speed of light.
Lasers are just light, but they're a specific type of light that has very small angle, so it's very accurate.
Wait, and so how do lasers? How are they dangerous again? Like, what do they do?
Well, light is energy, so
Evasive.
if you have enough energy
Persistent.
coming at you at the
Lighter
speed of light, it's
strengths
like a
for a
bullet.
rogue.
Okay, I don't really get that. But wait, so like, why doesn't
Well,
why doesn't why doesn't a lamp like hurt me?
because it's not very intense.
Have you played with the
So-
magnifier?
So
Okay.
when
Magnify
a
as a
nuclear
kid?
weapon drops, the initial blast that will kill you first if you're close to it is light.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay, well
If
that's
I could
actually
push back
okay,
on
that
the-
might like completely destroy the entire thing I just said. If there's a weapon that's just like light and it like kills
Yeah.
you,
So
and it travels at the speed of light, then that's like, yeah, I guess that what I said was like not valid in that
well,
case.
it's valid about everything other than light, which most weapons are still ballistic. But like, there's this thing. Have you heard of a gamma ray blast?
Yes.
So that's also light, and that can be emitted by, I think, like supernovas in certain scenarios. And a gamma ray blast travels at the speed of light. It can, according to our prediction, it would kill an entire planet. So that can never even be seen coming.
So if we see the galaxy with a galactic law or something of the similar sort, that goes to the different locations, and if there's enough like support for the law where in each of those locations, then that can, in a sense, ensure that the whole galaxy is following something. And I think this to me is like kind of answering the question of like the diversity. I think we will kind of settle upon like kind of the boundaries of civilization, perhaps through more intelligence we'll be able to find kind of consensus about what things are completely unacceptable for any state actor or individual, and then have like a vast amount of diversity within those boundaries. And I think that that's feasible throughout the whole galaxy.
I think we are far away from traveling through the solar system. Like at least 10,000 years, I would say, if we don't have a breakthrough.
I don't think so, man.
Nah,
I
10,000
would
years from now, we're
definitely
gonna be-
disagree.
Yeah, you can.
Maybe 7,000 light years and 10,000 light years. maybe we'll go like 30% of the
I
speed
mean-
of light. But yeah, we need to start.
I
we
mean,
need to start
how
expanding.
The
could we
galaxy is not very wide. If you go 1% the speed of light, you will be at Alpha Centauri in like what 500 years. That's not that much time.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't have the technology to do that. What I'm saying.
Yeah, we do. It's called chemical rockets.
And it's like we have technological trends, and we're perhaps going to stumble upon machine and super intelligence.
Yeah,
and,
I mean,
those we should
as
expect
far
those
as I
outcomes.
can tell, like intergalactic travel is only possible with the speed of light, right?
No. Well,
No, wait,
intergalactic.
what?
But do you mean between galaxies?
Yeah.
We don't need to go between galaxies. We have like 5 billion star systems right here.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, right? Because I was thinking way bigger than.
Oh, I don't think anybody thinks about going beyond the galaxy very much.
Oh, I see.
It's a bit far out, but it's also not necessary. Like the galaxy is so much larger than than the solar system, we're never gonna run out of galaxy.
Like the
That actually might not be true.
What do you mean?
I mean, if something is finite, then we can run out of it.
Yeah, like in some sense, you'll run out of anything finite, but
well,
I mean, like if someone wants to own an entire galaxy, then like you can't just be limited to one galaxy.
well, yeah, but I am going to
Well, there's
own
only
the
20
galaxy.
billion galaxies apparently reachable, so we can only each have two. So
What, in the observable universe?
wait.
there
What
was
I'm
some paper,
thinking,
I think it
guys,
was
is
from
how would someone travel through the galaxy?
With a rocket?
it was Andrew
No, I mean,
Sandberg, I
like
believe,
if it takes
stated that there's only
like
about
500 years,
20 billion.
how would you travel?
You have babies on the ship
And food, how do you make food? Like,
with light.
oh, okay, because I'm thinking the logistics of it.
No, you can with current technology, you could definitely colonize Alpha Centauri. It'd just be expensive and take a while.
I mean, if
Well, assuming the planet was habitable.
Yeah, everything's habitable if you try enough.
And we don't need
Oh, I
the
mean,
planet
okay,
to be
yeah, you could.
habitable.
Okay,
We
yeah,
just
so you
need
could
a
colonize it, but it would not look like it would. It would look like a Mars
Yeah,
base. It
exactly.
would not.
But it could be
Be
self-sustaining.
like anything close to Earth.
The good thing about the galaxy is, as far as we know, it's quite boring chemically. Basically, all the rocky planets are the same, more or less. They have the same exact chemicals. There's nuclear fuel on all of them. There's the same metals on all of them. They're basically all the same. So, yeah, you won't have like Earth's atmosphere, but you could go to Alpha Centauri and you could build a self-sustaining civilization there with today's technology for sure. It should be very expensive and time-consuming.
how much money would it cost?
But probably all of the money in the world's economy for like 1,000 years. I don't know, but we're growing very quickly, so I think it'll become quicker and cheaper quite
Okay,
soon.
okay. If I thought,
And we'll grow faster.
Yeah.
We'll grow faster moving forward.
Besides, once you have the full solar system of resources working towards that goal, it becomes quite cheap.
yeah, I think it's just that physics are a great limitation.
I don't know about that, man. It's not going to be like you in your 20s arriving there 5 years later, but you can get humans there.
Yeah, unless we figure out
Do you guys?
hibernation or something. What do we?
No, you just live on the ship and have kids. You don't have to hibernate. But yeah, you could, like, hypothetically, but you don't need to.
Who thinks the simulation theory is true?
No.
I don't think it's true because I can think it's true. I think if I couldn't think it is true, I think it was true.
I think if a simulation result is predetermined, it wouldn't be simulated. So them limiting this wouldn't make sense. Us knowing it.
I think Gene Keller had a interview with Linus, and he said about that. I forgot what he said. It was a great podcast, I think.
I have a thought about in a simulated world, what consciousness would be. Maybe it's like an external software. Almost all living animals are like do have consciousness, but like limited sort of like computing ability. The brain basically, our brains are better for that. Some animals have like worse brains that can't even have like light sensitivity, and that could make sense in a simulated universe because a lot of the fundamental rules of the universe basically on a level that they don't make sense. Gravity travels at the speed of light. I mean, does that make sense? Like, it shouldn't make sense.
I don't know. Does
How
it?
do you know gravity
Does it?
travels at the speed of light?
Gravity travels at the speed of light.
I don't think
Like,
so.
if the sun disappeared
I
now,
don't know.
it does.
Because gravity,
Gravitational
I think
pull is like
it doesn't travel, right? In a sense.
it does. Gravity is an interaction between atoms. So basically, atoms interact through virtual photons.
No,
So basically,
gravity
they travel
isn't
at the speed
gravity
of light.
just the space-time deformation?
Gravity is an interaction between particles, like literally,
I
like
don't think
Are you making the claim, Rami, that gravity is mediated by virtual photons?
Yes,
I don't
exactly.
think there's any evidence to support that.
That there is a lot of evidence. You know,
Well, I haven't come across
that,
any.
What I understand as gravity is just the deformation of the space time. Just that.
but that travels at the speed of light.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't travel at
It
all.
does.
I mean, there's
It is mediated through photons.
like the speed of light isn't that like the speed of, or it can be related to like the speed of causality. Like gravitational waves certainly do travel towards the speed of light. So I don't know if it's too crazy of a claim to say that gravity is at the speed of light, but I don't know.
But is it gravity that's traveling?
It's not about traveling. It's more like it is mediated. It's like it's kind of like
The speed of reaction. Like
how can I
if
say?
the sun stopped to exist, the Earth would be affected at the same time as the light would reach here.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I think that makes
Exactly,
sense.
yeah. But that is mediated through kind of virtual
No,
photons.
electromagnetism is mediated through photons, not gravity.
Yeah, we don't know what gravity is, right?
Yeah, it's highly disputed, but it's definitely not photons because that would just be electromagnetic force.
I mean, it said that I think there have been some kind of research that was out of CERN recently. I think that was about the. Let me search up quickly.
So, do you guys think that Jim Apple is gonna leak something today?
I don't see why he would. We'll just see tomorrow.
I think he would hint something like in retrospect, like in 2 days, gonna say I said this like he when was it Sora released, like he leaked in his alt account.
It's an unknown elemental particle. It was not photon, sorry, but it's mediated through a known particle.
No, it's not. The people think it might be mediated through gravitons, but we've never seen them. They're like this is highly debated. This is not like something that people have agreed on, and there's no evidence.
Can I say something that kind of changes the topic?
Yes.
The other reason, or one reason I think that this week also might be super big, is that maybe Tesla full self-driving 12.4 will start to roll out, and that might be like a big holy shit moment.
I'm very bullish on that. I actually am buying more Tesla shares tomorrow.
That is a good idea.
Yeah, well, I have cash that needs dealt with.
So,
What's up, white boy?
sorry, could you repeat that, Elena? I was saying FSD is gonna get an update.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like
What's the
FSD
update?
likely is just iteratively going to improve over time. Like they have that, like they're not going to change the architecture probably too radically. Like they have it end to end now, and so all they're going to be doing is throwing more data at it, more compute at it, and it's going to slowly get better. I don't know if we should expect like a step change, but it's already really really good. I have a 12.36 on my car, and it's really impressive. But I kind of expect it to be kind of a slow grind to like being better than humans. Not so
No,
much
that
a
last
step
10%,
change.
bro. It's that last 10% that's the hardest, right? It's gonna take
Isn't
forever.
it already? Isn't it already better than humans, but just not 10 times better like they want it?
Yeah, I think
So no, the supervised, the supervised, like that's safer than humans already, but that doesn't count because like you're forced when you're forced to pay more attention to the road. So that's why it's safer. The only thing that actually matters is unsupervised FSD in terms of safety.
Well, I was under the impression that unsupervised FSD was already safer than average human driver.
No, I haven't seen anything like that, and that doesn't seem like it would be true as of like the latest version. But maybe like in 6 months, maybe.
Do you guys think that self-driving is just a scale problem?
No.
Like for example, these models have to run real time, so the model need to be small.
Well, yeah, it has to fit within certain performance constraints.
So like from the laws of emerging capabilities, I think that we might be behind a little bit that in terms of size.
Well, the good news is that the computers in Teslas are going to get smarter over time. But
This is cool.
yeah, I think like the problem is more on the compute and data required to train, not the size of the output model.
I always thought that the size of the model was chosen because of the amount of the compute that the car has.
That doesn't really make any sense because the compute in the car is put there for specifically for FSD.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No, it's the other. You're saying that the size of the model is chosen for the compute in the car, but the compute in the car only exists for the model.
Yeah, but it still limits the size of the model in terms of
Well,
parameters.
but the decision making is exactly the opposite direction that you're saying. It's not like you. They're choosing the computer because of the model. Because they want a full self-driving capability in the car. That's why they choose the computer. So if they needed a bigger computer, they would put in a bigger computer and bump up the price slightly.
I guess, but it depends of the how much bigger the model needed to be, right?
I don't know, dude. I mean, they with the new Apple Silicon chips, they could probably just cram whatever they needed. I mean, the technology exists. I mean, we can put anything in anything now. So I'm not really worried about the compute on the device. What I'm more concerned about is the efficacy of these models and being able to not fuck up and not like recognize the squirrel as like a thing and then put the car into a ditch by accident, you know, in that 1% edge case. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like that's what we're doing. Like, it's like we're 99% of the way there, and this last 1% where like people are not going to die in freak accidents is going to take like probably a decade for it to actually come to fruition and be 100% no errors.
I think this is like the thesis that I think has been acknowledged for years, but I just don't know how much confidence you should have that it's not solvable with kind of the compute. Like we do know that Tesla is like rapidly scaling their compute that they're putting into training the models. They're they've streamlined their architecture. I don't think there's any good reason to think that they can't solve this problem and that it can't be better than humans. Even though, as you say, the true problem is all of these edge cases, and to have the confidence that it's not going to make these weird nonsense actions.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard, dude, and it's like I just don't. It's not even that the technology won't be able to do it, but it's more so that the management won't be able to make the team that makes the technology that's able to do it. Like it's totally possible. It's within the realm of possibility, but I feel like it's more of a management and HR issue, to be honest with you.
I mean, they've got an end-to-end network. They're throwing more and more compute and more data at it. I personally, based off of just seeing the step change into 12 and these few changes since the 12th model, yeah.
I know, dude. These like college graduates can barely like fucking order food properly. So I mean, like, how are they supposed to write a model that's 100% accurate? Like, I mean,
well, they just throw data and compute at the problem, perhaps.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? But then that's just like it's a money and time sink, and then we end up wasting all these resources on things that really don't matter at the end of the day. When we really should be investing in the right people. I don't know.
You
can have the best computer in the world, but I know a guy.
Tesla gonna shift to robotics in the meantime.
I mean, I think they're going to do it in parallel, and they clearly are.
Yeah,
and,
because I don't think
awesome.
Elon's gonna solve self-driving in the next like 2 to 3 years, and it has been promising this for like 5-6 years, and it didn't happen.
I think that it seems like self-driving is going to be solved by next year.
Do you think so?
I think there's a good chance of that. Yeah. I mean, there's no way to have confidence in this
I
without
feel
like
like I've heard
actually
someone
seeing
say that
these trend
before.
lines. That is,
I have.
yeah.
Yes, I know, but John, but it's different this time. It's actually different this time.
Guys, trust me.
Like
I'll
like
see you within a year this time.
no,
This is the year,
but
guys.
it actually like we can see what the trend is, you know, between 12, 12.1, 2, 3. So like if V 12.6 is like barely better than 12.5, then maybe that'll be like an indication that it's not going to get to human level anytime soon. But like as long as the current pace continues, it seems like it's going to like probably be really really good by next year.
Do you have the percentage numbers for each update?
No,
Why?
but so actually on Tesla's earnings call, that was like a few weeks ago, one of the executives said something really interesting that I've sort of been like interested in. Like I've been waiting for them to say something about it for a long time. It seems like they've actually modeled the FSD scaling
Oh.
laws. Like it seems like they know at this point, like how like when they put like basically they know how low the intervention rate to get based on like how much compute, how much data, or whatever. I mean, they didn't specify anything like that. They just said that they know what the scaling laws are. So there's a pretty good chance that they actually internally have like a projection for when the intervention rate will get more than a human, based on whatever input they're using for the scaling laws.
I'm
Like
not
whether
sure
it's
if
compute
there's
or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's anything
What?
I want more from all of these major AI labs than to give me all of their scaling law graphs. Just put it out there. Let us see these scaling laws, please.
The $1 trillion secret.
Yeah, but it was really interesting. And like it's really interesting that with this approach you actually can model it, and you can have a projection for when you think it'll be safer than a human.
Yeah, but I think if you could like double the size of the model, you could improve quite a lot, rather than.
Yeah, we want big model. None of this small model stuff. We want large model. I don't think it's really the size. I think you can do a lot more with less. I feel like that's what people should really be focused on, is doing more with less, because I've seen some amazing stuff come out with like people who are focusing on like smaller targets and absolutely maximizing the hardware. I feel like that's probably the smarter way to go. I just feel like this like big stuff is like not really gonna. It's like
Yeah, but my like
giving
main thing, like
gains
I'm
right
super
now.
excited about humanoid robots. That's like the main thing that I'm excited about, and that's probably just because like I like Star Wars and I just want to like live in a Star Wars world.
That's most people.
Yeah, they really had a lot of progress in like 3 years with Optimus, right? They are. I think they catch up with.
So what I want to see, I just want to see like a really good foundation model for like a humanoid robot that like I want to have all modalities like voice to voice. I want to be able to. It's a very high bar, but like I want it to be able to. I mean, basically, build a drop-in replacement for a human. Like even so that in the figure demo, that like they put out in March, like that was basically just like a VLM like calling like some other like thing that was like moving the arm for the apple or whatever. I would want that to be like one set of weights, like if that's possible.
A multi-model.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I see.
But I'd want it to like all be one model.
They're doing transfer learning, right? It seems. Like.
Yeah, and I would hope that
like
works.
like you have humans with those suits that people use for motion capture, and you can get the.
Oh no, I thought you meant transfer learning in terms of the other way that.
No.
Yeah, but the way like
the movement, like you train
What?
humans doing the tasks with the capture suit, and then you transfer the data.
Yeah, I thought you meant transfer learning as in like
No,
generalization.
no.
But yeah, that's like one of the ways that they're getting the data.
Yeah, I feel like people
Wouldn't that be
underestimate
very hard?
just like the compute trends and how good, like, because to me it was like in like 2020, like to me it was like, oh, GPT-3 like implies humanoid robots are going to happen, and like I've been hyped about humanoid robots kind of since I've seen like these scaling laws at work, and it just seems obvious to me that like just a few more years of these scaling laws is going to result in like extremely competent humanoid robots, and that it's going to, at the end of the day, like it's been a software problem, and eventually it's just not going to be a problem to get like competent humanoid robots. Exactly how you get all of the data, whether it's simulation or some like initial human interactions and otherwise, I just think it is going to end up being kind of a solved problem in the same way that natural language just went from, you know, being garbage to being good. And I think we're going to see the same thing, and that we're seeing the same thing with humanoid robots. Yeah.
I also really want to live in a world where like anyone can just like make their own humanoid robot with like off the shelf parts that are mass produced and using like an open source model.
Yeah.
Like basically like Anakin Skywalker on Tatooine, like that sort of thing. Like I think that would be a really great world.
It's like if is a humanoid robot's going to be a manufacturing giant kind of thing, or is it going to be like electronics? Is it like, oh, you can
Like
go
a
like
PC?
just like you'd go buy or like sort of
Yeah,
more like
I
radios
want it to be like
electronics
building
and-
a PC.
Yeah, exactly. I think
But
there's
I
a
think
good
it can be
chance, yeah.
both. I think there'll be like huge like, you know, factories like mass producing billions of them. But then also if you want to make your own, you can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the price will drive down where it'll just be a bunch of like cheaper factories. One will produce an arm, another will produce a leg or a thigh, and then you'll go and compile them all, plug them in, and I think it could end up being extremely cheap, because I think the hard part will be the software, and I think that's just going to kind of solve itself out of the kind of compute trends we're on.
I think the battery also is going to be expensive. But Tesla does have this advantage that they make like the full stack, so
Interesting.
they might be the
They're
next $2
efficient.
trillion company if it works out.
I think Tesla's easily worth like $5 trillion already. The market just has to adjust. But it's
But
definitely
do you think it's in the car industry or robotics in general?
No, it is not.
both.
Tesla, the car industry is not going to be a big part of it. I'm pretty confident in
Yeah,
that.
it's not about selling cars. I mean, robotaxis are important, but selling cars is not where the value of the business comes from. Sure.
Yeah, but I don't even think I think that Optimus will be like a much bigger TAM than
Yeah,
FSD.
I think like people could buy like 5 of them.
I'll be buying 2,000.
This isn't investment advice, but I feel like all leaps are just like terribly priced. I feel like the market just has not updated to how crazy the next few years are going to be, and that anybody selling a leap is just getting a terrible deal. But hey, that's not investment advice there.
Yeah, I've like my intuition is that like assets right now broadly are like totally mispriced, but it's not like it's not super clear to me in what way all of them are mispriced. Like I know that like I read a paper about like people saying that like AGI should like make treasury yields go way up or something. It's interesting to think about those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think there's a chance of a war, probably
Interesting.
like 1% of chance of a war.
Anyways, guys, I'm gonna head out. Thanks for joining the space.
Okay.
If somebody else wants to start one, let me know.
Actually, I'm gonna watch her right now for tomorrow. Not kidding, guys.
Not a bad idea. All right, peace.
Peace.
Thanks, Spencer.
Thanks, John.
Hello and goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Oh yeah, we wanted to pick where we wanted to go first. Interesting Twitter space. Yeah, as you can tell, I'm kind of multitasking, bouncing back and forth here. The KV cache compression is kind of a topic that's been interesting to me for a while. Forget why. Oh yeah. So Megatron uses the I have a ChatGPT conversation about it somewhere. But the Megatron architecture uses it graphs the CUDA kernel, and I believe that corresponded in some way to like a KV cache optimization technique. But I really need to go back and do more of my CUDA homework, so I can really get a grip on exactly what that means. But I'm actually kind of interested in the model tells you what to discard, right? Like, that's very interesting. Can we papers with code this? Really? I'm kind of surprised. Okay. Well, let's see. Pressure. Bastion. Okay, can I find that on GitHub? Mm, it's not a big advantage. Okay. Experiment, yes. Excuse me. Adapt the kernel from deep speed. Okay. The question is, where did you put that GitHub repo for FastGen? Like, what the hell? So There we go. Except it doesn't fucking exist. How annoying. Mm-hmm. True. Okay, alright. Well, so it looks like it does not currently exist. So, I feel like this is probably beyond my ability. Basically, the kind of thing that I can do is take a existing repo and modify it slightly, but from scratch is something I would probably need help with. But it's very interesting, nonetheless. Whether a supervised learning dataset has been included in LLM training. Interesting. Okay. DeepSeek V2? Was not informed about that, Jesus. Interesting. Perfect. Mm. Okay, so it is this. That could be kind of fun. Yeah. Okay, well, we'll probably do that one. I probably will just come back later and do it. This video is getting a little bit long, but we'll have to dig into it a little bit more, see what happens.